Welcome to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, a relaxing and informative show where we explore anxiety, panic, and PTSD, sharing how you can overcome them for life.
Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I'm so happy to be with you again today as we consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. We offer a number of ways to help you with your journey, so I hope you're taking advantage of everything that we offer. You can subscribe to this twice-a-week podcast. You can join our free Facebook group. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get more from me and advance notice of things that are coming up. Go to anxietycoachespodcast.com and check all that out. Today we're talking about adrenal fatigue. And what I'm talking about is the actual adrenal fatigue syndrome. There are a lot of questions that come in regarding this particular syndrome because it is definitely related to stress. Because when the body is exposed to stress, a cascade of hormonal changes occurs, and it eventually causes the release of cortisol, which we know it's a stress hormone, and that comes from the adrenal gland. So normally when a stressor goes away, our body turns off the stress that causes this hormonal cascade, and it reduces the release of the cortisol, and things calm back down again. It's just the cycle. The body is equipped to handle it in that manner. The problem begins when we are constantly activating our stress hormones. So when we're exposed to chronic stress over a long period of time, and this is different for each individual. Some people are built to be able to handle large amounts of stress. Others, very small amounts. We have to know who we are and what we can handle. And what we want to do is be able to live within that and to know what we can take without overstressing our body. Because when we're exposed to this chronic stress over a long period of time, our adrenals pump out more and more of this cortisol, our stress hormone, and the negative feedback cycle that normally keeps things in check, keeps the body turning off so that we don't overuse our adrenals. This all begins to suffer. It's not working well anymore. And the body can't keep up with the demand for needing so much cortisol our body is not reacting to it in the way that it should. So the message is being sent to send out more. Our cortisol levels, we're pumping out more and more. And eventually the adrenals become exhausted and the cortisol levels become low. And this is what is referred to as the adrenal fatigue syndrome. Again, when you hear people talk about having adrenal fatigue, it's not a disease. It's considered a syndrome, which just means that it is a collection of symptoms. And some of these symptoms are as follows. Let's get into what some of them are altogether. Being exhausted in the morning, waking up tired is not a normal thing. So pay attention. That's one that we hear a lot here, right? People are waking up unrested. Decreased ability to be able to handle stress. And that's, again, another thing we see with anxiety, panic, right? All of a sudden, the little things that you used to be able to handle, the small stressors, are no longer you're not able to handle them anymore. It's like you're getting more and more triggered with smaller and smaller things. Brain fog is another one. The lack of cognitive ability when you are really fuzzy We hear this. People feel like they're not in their body. They feel like they're not in their thinking. It's just all fuzzy. Dizziness is another one that comes very easily with the adrenal fatigue as one of the symptoms in this syndrome. The dizziness, either from when you've been laying down or even just from sitting. And a lot of people talk about dizziness just period. They have it. They're not even getting it. It's not from posture change. It's just being out and about, and then that buzzing dizziness. A low sex drive is another symptom. Increased severity of allergic responses is another one. And that is a real sign that the body is really exhausted, that all of a sudden your allergies are worse or you're allergic to more things. And we want to pay attention to this because it's another signal that you might have really overworked your adrenals here. Low blood pressure shows up as a symptom, and that can also lead into the dizziness. Low blood sugar. So we can see here again, all these systems are connected and not one thing is going to be dealt with. All of these things are connected, and this blood sugar issue shows up over and over again with anxiety, panic. And again, so does the low blood pressure and the dizziness. Do you start to see them all coming from the same kind of place? Because our mind and body are connected, and one is feeding into the other. The conversation, remember, goes both ways. And another symptom is weakness. Not feeling like you are strong. And I hear this from people who have had to actually give up their particular workouts or sports that they had been playing. They may have to totally give these up in order to be able to get back on keel and heal again. So let's talk for a minute about how we get there from the view of anxiety, panic. We get into this situation of this adrenal fatigue syndrome by not having a good amount of sleep. If you are waking up exhausted, not sleeping well at night, all that alone has serious consequences. Our mood changes with our lack of sleep. The cognitive ability, the brain fog, all comes in when we are not well rested. And we also have the start or the risk of metabolic difficulties when we are not getting enough sleep or deep enough sleep. And sleep deprivation activates the stress response, and it causes an increase in the cortisol levels. And again, this is just priming you for adrenal fatigue. Let's look at how the day might be. So you wake up, you didn't sleep well, you had a lack of sleep, so you've got these feelings going on, right? You're a little fuzzy, but you've got a whole day ahead of you. So you rush through your morning, getting ready for work or getting kids off to school, whatever your routine is. And so what are you doing for breakfast is a good question. After realizing, okay, tick that off, I didn't get good sleep. Next thing, what are you eating? What was the breakfast? Did you prepare for your breakfast? Did you sit down and eat? And you're probably thinking, well, if I'm already behind the 8 ball, who's got time for that, right? So did you just grab something? Was it high in carbohydrates and refined sugars? Who knows, right? When the blood sugar drops from eating refined high-carb foods, the adrenals release cortisol and epinephrine, sending a signal to the body that it needs to get glucose into the bloodstream as soon as possible. And then when this happens, the body responds by breaking down the glycogen, which is just stored glucose in your muscles and in the cells, and as well as working to create new glucose from protein. And that's through a process called gluconeogenesis, but it's not important to know the names of these things. It just is important to know that every time your blood sugar drops, it's an emergency signal to the body. And that whole thing that we were talking about earlier is activated once again, which means the adrenals are getting the message that it has to send out stress hormones, and that stress hormone being starting with the cortisol. And so that whole thing is started again, and you're in the loop. Can you see it now? So let's get back to the day. So whether you're eating a processed high carb diet or a low carb diet, if it is in combination with intense exercise, your adrenals are taking a hit. So here is where I said earlier, people often come and they've had to give up their exercise workout regime or their sport, because if you are in this state of adrenal fatigue, the exercise, the intense exercise, is not your friend. This is not the time to be digging in deeper with that, thinking that that's what you need. You need to get more in shape and you need to work out. No, this is the time where we're going to have to let that go. So it doesn't matter what kind of diet you're eating. If you are doing intense exercise, your adrenals are taking a hit. So you go off for the day, right? You've gotten out the door, whatever you've eaten, you had a lousy night's sleep, and now you're out on the road or running for a train or whatever. But let's say you're in traffic and you're getting cut off, right? It's such an awful feeling. You're driving, you're late, and you feel the pressure, right? And that just activates that whole system, that stress system again. Every encounter. This is what we talk about with why we just don't get that relaxation. We don't get that place to rest, because we're activating our stress hormones over and over all day. And that is why they're exhausted. That's why those adrenals are fatigued. So you're at school or you're at work or a meeting and you feel on edge, right? And you're waiting for even more to come your way. It's starting to feel like that, waiting for the shoe to drop kind of feeling. Now, this is the kind of stress that truly separates us from our ancestors. Their stressors were actually acute. They were being chased by an animal, or they were needing to get away from a situation or weather. And our stress is not acute. It is absolutely chronic emotional issues that never truly leave us. These stressors are the ones that take the biggest toll on our adrenal health, because it is constantly and consistently activating our stress hormones. So continuing on through the day, by the time you get home from a long day of stress, all you want to do is rest and relax. You make some dinner, you sit down to eat, maybe you're watching TV or your screens, and for the rest of the night, you're glued to a TV screen or a phone screen or a tablet or the computer until it's time to go to sleep. And even if you're in bed on time, you're likely in bed with some screen, surfing the internet, and maybe even watching something more, checking in on news even, or Facebook and seeing what other people are doing. And so with so many options of things to do, it's hard to convince ourselves to actually just turn it all off and go to sleep. But that's what we need to do. And I want to talk for a minute here about these blue lights that emanate from your screens. They reduce the production of melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. And so does the lack of sunshine, that you get, no sunshine during the day, so to speak, unless it was just from walking back and forth to the car or running for the train. So the lack of sunshine reduces your melatonin. You need to have sunshine early in the day in order for your melatonin to kick off at sunset, which will help to prepare you to fall asleep. And the blue lights do the same thing. So they are cutting down on your melatonin. And Perhaps you find yourself turning off all your devices and trying to fall asleep, only to find that you're worrying. You've got your mind going, it's activated, and it's coming up with ideas about deadlines, remarks from the day, things that bothered you during the day, reviewing your entire laundry list of what ifs, right? We all know the what if. And all of these issues lead you to get less sleep than you need. And you wake up unrested the next morning and you start the cycle all over again. So that's one day of the stress hormones, and they were going all day. Now, maybe you can't relate to this. Maybe your day is not quite that stressful, but this is just an idea of all of the little things that add up. These are all cumulative. They're all cutting in to your ability to be in your parasympathetic nervous system, to rest and digest and be calm and to heal, because it's one stress after the other, and that's why you have an adrenal fatigue. Now let's see what we can do to prevent this and heal from it. Let's get to some good news. First thing you want to make sure you do is right where we started earlier, is to sleep for at least 8 hours a night. Now, I want to say that many people need 9 or 10 hours of sleep a night. Now, that's unheard of in our culture that really applauds being able to sleep few hours and to be able to work more hours. But the reality is, if you're not getting the rest you need, the work you're doing is crap. So just let it go. Find out how much sleep you need. And we're going to do that in a whole nother podcast, because it's very important to be able to get enough sleep. If you are suffering with adrenal fatigue, please give yourself at least 8 hours, maybe up to 10 and more if you are healing. So this is going to mean that you're in bed and ready to sleep by 10 o'clock at night. Now, you're going to shift that to even earlier if you have to get up earlier, but I like to see people in bed and asleep before 10 p.m. because the sleep between 10 and midnight is worth a lot more than from midnight to 2. So those 2 hours, 10 to midnight, is worth double. It's worth 4 hours of sleep. So please, if nothing else, get into bed before 10 p.m. And if possible, use an alarm clock that wakes you up gently, because waking up to a very loud, jarring sound is not a good way to start the day, and it is already starting to stress you out. So there are clocks that can wake you up with light. You might want to check into those. Google wake alarm clocks and you'll find one maybe that agrees with you. Or I used to use one that had a soft chime that got progressively louder. So I learned actually to wake up with a very soft chime, and that was a physical clock that was, I don't even know if they make those anymore, but you could Google that also. And some people prefer to wake up with the lights, the progressive light in their room. Another thing that you can do to help you heal from adrenal fatigue syndrome is to limit your exposure to the blue light like we were talking about. And you can do that by wearing those orange-yellow glasses or installing the apps like F.Lux on your computer. I've been using it for years. F.Lux at around 6 o'clock at night when the sun is setting, my computer turns from blue lights to more orange lights, and it really helps to ease the blue light stimulation. Another thing you want to do is to be able to eat on a regular basis. Don't go too long without meals, because your body needs the consistency right now to help you heal. So if you're worried about your stress level or you think you might have adrenal fatigue, I highly caution you against skipping breakfast or any meal actually regularly. Getting a good protein, high-fat breakfast in the morning will stabilize your blood sugar and keep you even-keeled throughout the day. So that's the most important way to start. This is not a time to worry about weight or dieting or any fad type of new kinds of ways of eating. You need to get out of this adrenal fatigue first and take care of yourself. So eat often, 3 meals and maybe 2 snacks a day. Just stop when you're full. There's no need for overeating, but you need to eat often and you need to have high fat, medium protein and lowered carbohydrate to help you just have that stabilization. You want to be sure to include healthy carbs like fruits and starchy tubers. So you want to have, the root vegetables and potatoes are fine. If you're worried about your adrenal health, you want to have moderate carbohydrate diet is best when you have high stress levels happening in your life. And those of you with anxiety, panic are in a high stress state and you are at risk for adrenal fatigue. So let's do everything we can to keep you out of that. Eliminate intense exercise routines. This is not a time for training for anything. You want to opt for things more like Tai Chi, Qigong, Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga, not some of these other ones that are really much heavier in speed. You want gentle walking instead of running. So just opt to keep moving, but do it in a mindful way. And when you do eat, back to the carbohydrates, when you do eat carbs, combine them with protein and fat so that it can slow down the absorption and help to keep your blood sugar stable. If you haven't already, this is a time to start a meditation program because it will really help to reduce your mental and emotional stress. The benefits of implementing a stress management practice grows over time. Be patient. Please, this is so important. Be patient because we get into this syndrome because of a life filled with rushing. And it's time to find the pace that suits your mind and body. You're going to have to slow way down in order to heal. That won't mean that you have to go at that pace forever, but you'll want to be very aware of your stress levels as you heal and start to add in more activities. Find the pace that suits your mind, body. That's it for today's episode. And before I read today's quote, I want to remind you that if you want more than what's offered here and more personal guidance, you might be ready for our group coaching membership program. It's a deeper dive into what you learn here on these episodes. Each month, you'll receive 2 anxiety clearing skill sheets sent in email. You'll also receive 2 live group coaching calls, which are recorded in case you can't attend. Those will help guide you through your challenges. And there's also a secret Facebook group for coach and community support every day, all month long. So if you're ready for more, go to anxietycoachespodcast.com/group-coaching and join today. I'd love to see you in the group. I'm glad I got to spend time with you again today. And now for today's quote. Be content to progress in slow steps until you have legs to run and wings with which to fly. And that's from Padre Pio. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Find more information at theanxietycoachespodcast.com.